Christ is risen, and on the Friday of Bright Week, we celebrate the feast of the life-giving spring. On the Friday of Bright Week, otherwise known as Renewal Week, we celebrate the feast of the life-giving spring, which is a feast of our Panagia. The following is written in the Synaxarion of the day. On the Friday of Renewal Week, we celebrate the dedication of the Church of our Most Holy Lady and Mother of God, the life-bearing spring. We even remember the supernatural miracles that took place in this Church of the Mother of God. The Panagia is called the life-giving spring since she gave birth to life, who is Christ. The epithet, life-giving spring, was first given to the Panagia by Joseph the hymnographer in the 9th century in a composition of a hymn to the Panagia. The feast, as mentioned above, refers to the dedication of the sacred church of the Panagia, known as the life-giving spring in Valoukli, outside the walls of Constantinople, where there was a spring of holy water that did and does many miracles. The sacred church of the life-giving spring in the city was first built by Emperor Leo the Thracian, who was virtuous and forgiving, even before he became emperor and was a simple soldier, when he met a blind man outside the Golden Gate of Constantinople. The blind man asked for water to drink, and Leo looked for the source of the spring of water in the area, which was overgrown with trees, and he was unable to find it. He became very sad that he was unable to find water for the blind man. He then heard a voice say to him, "King Leo," he was called a king even though he was just a soldier, which became verified, "come deeper into the woods, and after receiving in your hands this turbid water, quench the thirst of the blind man and wash his eyes, and then you will know who I am who dwells in this place." Leo immediately did what the voice ordered him to do, and the blind man received his sight. The voice was that of the Panagia. Leo, when he became emperor, out of gratitude and honor, built on the site of that holy water the sacred church in honor of the Panagia, the life-giving spring. When, over a period of time, this sacred church collapsed, other emperors, Justinian and Basil the Macedonian, took it upon themselves to have a new church built, even more grand than the previous. Another tradition says that the first church was built by Justinian, after seeing in a vision, while he was hunting there, a small church and a priest in front of a spring, saying to him that it is a spring of wonders. There he built a monastery with the materials left over from Hagia Sophia. This church in the Queen City collapsed in the 15th century. According to reports from 1547, the church no longer existed. Only the holy water was there. In 1833, Patriarch Constantius I, with permission from the Sultan, rebuilt the church over the ruins of the old one. Thus, on February the 2nd in 1835, Patriarch Constantius, with 12 other hierarchs, dedicated the new church of the life-giving spring in Valoukli. Valoukli means the place of the fish, since the spring contains fish. In this church, many miracles took place, even to noble families of the empire, a typical example being the release from sterility of Empress Zoe, who after the miracle from the life-giving spring gave birth to Constantine Porphyrogenitus, who became emperor in Byzantium. In this church also were healed the emperors Justinian, Leo the Wise, Romanos Lecapenos, Adrianicus III, Patriarch Stephen of Constantinople, Patriarch John of Jerusalem, many empresses, and many senior officials of the empire, as well as clergy and monks and many ordinary Christians. In the 14th century, Nicephorus Callistos wrote about the holy water of the spring and compiled a list of 63 miracles. The icon of the Panagia of the life-giving spring depicts the Panagia in a fountain from which an abundance of water flows out, carrying in her arms Christ, who gives a blessing. 2 angels crown her, holding a scroll that reads, "Rejoice, thou who art the King's throne. Rejoice, thou who carriest him who carriest all." Around the fountain are depicted the emperor and many sick with various diseases. They received the holy water sprinkled on them by the healthy. At the corner is depicted someone emblazoned with fish, since, as we said, Valoukli means the place of fish. The reverence and love of the people of Constantinople for the life-giving spring has been transmitted to all Orthodox in many places, such as in Nafpaktos, across from Nafpaktos in Agio at Panagia Tripiti, where a church was built in honor of the Panagia of the life-giving spring, and where many miracles take place, supporting the people in their everyday lives and in their faith in God. The icon of the Theotokos of the life-giving spring principally shows the miracle-working spring located outside the Golden Gate of Constantinople, amid a grove of trees. Life-giving spring is also a title of honor given to Mary, the Mother of God, for example in the canon of the Akathist. Hail, Sovereign Lady, never-failing spring of the living water. The living water is, of course, Christ himself, and the line is a reference to the Old Testament when Moses in the wilderness struck the rock, and God brought water out of the rock and caused waters to flow down as rivers. Psalm 78, verse 16. Jesus, referring to this miracle, said, "If any man thirst, let him come unto me, and drink. He that believes on me, according to the Scriptures, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water." John 7, verse 38. Just as the Old Testament miracles prefigured the as yet unborn Jesus Christ, so too do modern miracles point back to their source in the risen Christ. The icon then shows the miraculous spring which still exists today, usually in the shape of the cross. A roundabout people are coming to the waters to be healed. This is where most of the people's attention is focused. Yet we who stand outside the icon are also granted the invisible image of the Mother of God holding Jesus Christ. Seated within a font, they sanctify the waters which then flow into the cross-shaped pool everyone is gathered around. The physical manifestation of God's love for mankind is shown together with the spiritual source of such miracles, Christ, the living water, and his mother, from whose belly the living water flowed. In the Apologetikion for this feast it is sung, "As a life-giving font you conceived the dew that is transcendent in essence, O Virgin Maid, and you have welled forth for our sakes the nectar of joy eternal, which pours forth the water that springs up unto everlasting life in unending and mighty streams. And so, taking delight, we all cry out, Rejoice, O spring of life for all men."